Hello and welcome to my channel where we talk about tips and tricks for teaching elementary music. Okay, here's today's video. So today I want to talk to you about lesson structure. In the world of elementary music, there are different ways that you can teach, okay? So for an example of that would be Orff. If you're familiar with that style at all, there's a lot of instrumentation involved, a lot of playing before you see notation, a lot of movement pieces to the same song, and so on and so forth. Then there's Songworks, which is a lot of game playing and singing a cappella as opposed to having like a backing track or something like that. I don't really do either one of those methodologies. There's nothing wrong with them. I know several teachers that teach with those methodologies and they are very successful at what they do, and their kids get to know music the same way my kids get to know music, and they can put on performances and everything else. It all comes down to personal preference. For me personally, I have a different type of lesson structure. I do 7 activities in a lesson, and I like to have like a separate space for each activity. So in other words, you know, if we sing a song, once we're done with the song, we go back to our seats while we're getting ready to switch to the next activity, and then we transition and do the next activity. Whereas these other methodologies, Songworks and Orff, tend to be introducing a song, say for example, Mary Had a Little Lamb, and they will introduce the song, they will sing the song, they will move straight from singing the song to doing motions with the song, and straight from that into maybe going to an instrument and playing some sort of accompaniment or skeletal melody with the song. And then they might do another component where they deconstruct it and turn it into something else. Once again, nothing wrong with that, but they're spending like approximately anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes on one song. Yes, they're doing multiple different things with that, the people that do this methodology. But for me personally, I get tired of hearing the same song for 20 minutes in a row. So I like to break it up and use different songs for different things. So in the case of Mary Had a Little Lamb, going back to that, I don't talk about copyrighted music on my channel. I don't show copyrighted music on my channel. And I'm just using Mary Had a Little Lamb as an example. I actually do not teach this song at all to any of my classes. So like in the case of Mary Had a Little Lamb, or any song, you might say, oh, okay, that's a good singing song, and I noticed that melody-wise, it's not too far apart with like big leaps, so maybe I can throw a melody piece on there, either as like, you know, a chorded ostinato pattern, or maybe a skeletal melody piece. I could throw some rhythm instruments on there because it's in 4, and that's really easy to figure out a rhythm part with that, and that's true. You want to look at songs and say, how many different things can I do with that song? The difference with how I do it is I would take Mary Had a Little Lamb, and the first week I would sing it, maybe add motions. It just depends on how I feel that it works at that moment. The next week I would play it, okay? So they've had 1 week of singing it, and then when they go to play it, and especially if whatever they're playing rhythmically matches something in the thing that they just sang like the week before, it really helps them to kind of know where they're going to be playing that part, because they've heard that rhythm before, especially if it's a melodic pattern, so that they only have to focus on the melody. Like if they're playing bells, say for example, they only have to focus on which bells they're hitting because they've got that melody in their head. So if you wanted them to play Little Lamb, Little Lamb, they got that rhythm in their head from singing it the week before, so they just need to focus on what are the actual pitches that I'm hitting on the melody part, okay? So I do multiple things with the same song. I just break it up so that it's not all in the same week. So I'm going to show you a piece of music and what I would do with it, and then I'm going to talk to you about my actual lesson structure. Okay, so what you see in front of you is a piece of music that I wrote. If you're curious, the software I used was MuseScore. I think they're on number 4 now. It's free software, so if you don't happen to have a composition software, this would be a good one to use. And I'm just going to play through it so that you can hear how it sounds. Okay, so you can see that I wrote it to be like an ABA form, so you certainly could be teaching form with a song like this. You could sing it one week. Clearly there's no lyrics. I didn't put lyrics on this particular song, but let's assume there were. So you could teach it as a singing song. You could talk about the form of the song, the A section, B section, and then back to A again. So starting and ending the same. So those are 2 concepts right there, singing and form. So maybe you do that week 1. And then week 2, you could take the same song and you could add rhythm instruments to it if that's what you're doing in your classroom at that time, is more of a rhythm focus. Or you could have melody instruments. You could pull from what you see in the notation, like you can see here, I wrote a flute part right here. You could easily put something like that on a bell set for the students to play. Why not just have them play just this twice instead of adding the rest in? It would be a little bit less confusing, and it might help them with repetition, because repetition really is the name of the game in elementary music, if you could do that. Or you could say that you wanted to play the actual melody itself, right? So maybe the C to the A, then A, B, G, D. That's going to be more complicated in a melody pattern. Putting rhythm instruments on this would be super easy because it's in 4, so you could easily just, come up with anything you wanted, ta ta, ti ti ta to, ta ta, however you want to do, whatever instruments you want to do. So basically the idea is, as you're looking at music, you're thinking, how many different ways can I use this? But then in my methodology or my structure, I wouldn't do everything with that one song in 1 week. I would spread it out over 2 weeks. Then the 3rd week, the same song would come back as just a singing song, a known song. Okay, here is something that I recently wrote for a student teacher. It is my structure for my lesson, and in the parentheses, I kind of explained a little bit about why I did it this way, but I'm going to more fully explain it to you, because the student teacher and I had conversations, so I didn't need to put more information, but you and I have not had a conversation about this. So here we go. So when the students walk into my room, we have a steady beat song. So that is music playing. It could be something with voices, without voices. It could be any genre that you want, but the idea is to have a pretty steady beat going on. And I like to use things that are in meters of 2, 3, or 4, because keep it simple, and the students come and they find the steady beat, They're patting on their laps, and then eventually I will give them a pattern. So it might be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So the emphasis is on meter, and I will ask them what is the steady beat number for the day, and they will tell me, then they sit down. So that's like all of maybe 90 seconds that we've done that, okay? Maybe 2 minutes tops. And then they're sitting in their seats, I take attendance. After that, we will take the same steady beat song that we just used, and we will listen to it, and I will use that to discuss anything I want about that particular song. So say for example, I was doing the whole prelude to the Holberg Suite, which if you're not familiar with that and the composer's name escapes me, if I remember it, I'll pop it up here as a little call out. But the prelude to the Holberg Suite is has a lot of dynamic changes. So you feasibly could listen to it and have the students like hold their hands like this, and if it's medium, if it's soft, if it's loud, so that they're kind of going along with the dynamic changes and feeling it. So that might be something we would do as a listening activity for that song. If it's a song that had like a solo, like if it was a concerto for trumpets or something like that, there's multiple composers that have written those sorts of things, you might say, what is the special instrument that you hear? And you want them to be able to distinguish that it's a trumpet. So it just depends on what the music gives you to work with. Okay, so then after we listen, and that activity, just depending on how long it takes, like if we were to do the whole prelude to Holberg Suite prelude, I'm going to write down the correct way to say that. Somewhere it'll pop up. If we were to do that whole piece, it might be 2-3 minutes, as opposed to I'm just listening for a trumpet, maybe we only play 1 minute of the piece. It just depends on what you're trying to do with that piece of music. Okay, so after we've done that, then we go into a known singing song. So when I mentioned before, picking out a song, I'm gonna look at it, we're gonna sing it as a brand new piece, right? Then we're gonna play it the next week, and then the week after that, it becomes the known song, the song that I don't have to teach. I just put it on there and I'm like, you guys remember this song, let's go ahead and sing it. And as you can see there, it says no need to teach it, you just start the music. From there, we go to, all of this has been anticipatory set stuff, but we go into what I call foundational anticipatory set. Currently in the spring semesters, we work on solfege. The fall semesters in my district, I focus on rhythm because we have a rhythm focus in the fall and a melody focus in the spring. So in the fall, I'm doing rhythm reading and rhythm instruments, non-pitched instruments. And in the spring, we do melody instruments and solfege. So you can see there, it's foundational. So you're doing the same patterns over and over again. You can mix them up, whatever. You can switch around. They don't have to do every pattern, but it's like I have a slide deck of, I want to say 50 plus patterns, and we just go through them as we're going. Okay. So you could also take song-specific solfege. So now that they have this solfege that they're learning, and you can use that as an extension later when you teach a new song. I'll get into that in a moment. So after we've done this, so we've had steady beat, which is a routine they know very well. We've listened to music, talked about it. We've done a known singing song, and now we've gone over solfege. So now my anticipatory set is completely done, okay? And we're moving into something else. So we're going into the body of the lesson. So you're going to do a dedicated dance song. So I'm not taking the known singing song, like let's say, once again, it's Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I had taught them some sort of movement piece. I'm not going to take that and put it in the dance section and say, let's get up and do the movement that I showed you to Mary Had a Little Lamb. Because it's that song we sang, we've also played instruments on it, all of those things. This is a dedicated, we only dance to this song. That's what I put in this spot. So it could be a song that is something that you are teaching them choreography to, like right there in person. On the A section, we do this. On the B section, we do this. Whatever your choreography is. It could be a video that you found that has structured choreography, or a video that you made that has form-based choreography, however you want to do it. But this needs to be a dedicated song where we're only dancing. We never take this song out and sing it. We never play instruments on this song. that's how I approach that, because it just kind of keeps it more special. And as a result, I can replay these throughout the school year. So if we have, you know, class once a week every 9 weeks, and so then in a semester, 18 weeks, maybe they'll see the same song twice, right? Maybe I have only 15 dance songs that I found that I like, that are like in video format, that they can follow along with, either something I made or something somebody else did. So we rotate them around so that they do get a chance to revisit them in the future. So as you can see here, it does say ideally the song would be form-based, because form is a very difficult concept for these kids to hear, that flip of going from A to B. They don't always hear that change in the music. So movement can help that with, like, if I know I'm doing this until we get to dun 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 dun, and then I switch to this, it really kind of helps to get that switch in their mind. But if it's not form-based, it should definitely be choreography, because choreography is good also. It should not be every time you play music with them, just move how you feel. There is a time and place for freestyle and moving how you feel, and how does this music make you feel like moving. There is a time and place for that. But if that is the only type of dancing you do in your classroom, I think you're doing your kids a little bit of a disservice, because dance in and of itself can be a structured thing, especially if you're trying to teach them a program number and you want them all to be doing the same choreography, or, like I said, once again, you want to use it to reinforce form. So if it's always just a freestyle, do what you want, the kids might get bored with it a little bit after a while too, okay? So just keep that in mind. All right, so after the dance song, we sit back in our chairs and I get ready for the new singing song, which that is a new thing that we have not taught, that we have not done at all in class. And I will teach it by rote singing, you know, where I'm like, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb, Mary, right? And they copy, okay? And then I will add the backing track that we have that goes with it. And I will point at the lyrics as we're going, so that I'm helping the kids track. All of this is done on a smart board, right? So I'm pointing at the lyrics and tracking for the students as we're going along. After the new singing song, if they've been sitting on the carpet, because they are allowed, if we're doing anything on the smart board, they're allowed to come up to the carpet and sit down and focus, because it helps some of these students to see better. After that, singing is done, we go back to our seats, because then we're going to switch over and do an instrument piece. So the instrument piece will be done twice. If this is something I had written for my student teacher, if possible, use bells and boom whackers so students can play two different instruments. If we're talking non-pitched instruments, maybe you're using maracas and triangles, who knows? At least use two instruments, and then you can play the song twice, and the maraca players and the triangle players can switch, right? Same with the bells and the boom whackers. Whatever instruments you're using, if you can do the song, the instrument song twice, so they get a chance to switch. So this other part that says, if not possible, use the same instruments but rotate notes. So I have a song that I was doing with kindergarten the other day, and it was CFAA, CFGG. That was the pattern. So what I did was, I have these individual bells in my classroom, and I took them and I put them on the floor in a box, and I put the students in 4 circles. So I had a C group, an F group, an A group, and a G group, and they sat around the box, and they each got a bell and a mallet, and they played as I pointed, CFAA, CFGG. And then once the song was over with, because the song was maybe, I don't know, it's like a 1:10 song. It's, I'll tell you the name of it, but I'm not going to sing it. If you have any of the Pearson interactive music, or even the older stuff like the Making Music or World of Music, it's called Sing About Martin. And it's in either kindergarten or first grade. I can't remember which level it's in, but that's what they were doing. So after they played the song through once, I said I had the G group stand up, and they came and stood next to me because that was the one that was the closest over here. And I had A move to G, F move to A, C move to F, and so on. And we rotated around 4 times. So we did the song 4 times. So by the end, the students got a chance to play that one note, but every single note of the 4-note pattern. And that was kindergarten. Instrument parts should be notated. This is where I differ from some of my colleagues. And if this is not how you structure your classroom, this is not me saying you shouldn't be doing it your way. You do what you want to do. I have learned with over 30 years worth of teaching, my kindergartners can handle seeing notation on a staff with no problem. It's not going to scare them. It's not going to hinder their learning of music. It's not going to slow them down. It's not going to put a roadblock in front of them. Now, I will say this, with the kindergarten, it will be up there in the notation. And I also, because it is, the pitches have letters, I will put the letters underneath the notation as well, because I'm also calling out the letters. So you've got that going on the smartboard, and I'm calling it out for the students. Kindergarten, let's be honest, they're just looking at the letters for the most part, but it's not going to hurt them to see a staff with middle C, first space F, second space A on it. It's not going to hurt them to see that. So I just like to have the notation out there, because then by the time they get to the point where you are really starting to get into what are the letters of the treble clef and stuff like that, and later on, by 2nd grade and all those things, they've seen this stuff already. So it's one of those, oh, I've been seeing this all along. Let me put this new information into what I already know. So it just kind of helps with that. Okay, so a lot of times the instrument piece is usually the last piece on my lesson. That is, I have to get through this, right? So that's why it says here, if time permits, theory, okay? So examples would be with 2nd through 4th grade, we're learning the treble clef, because like I told you, we've switched over to a melody focus. So using the hand staff, right, with the E, G, B, D, F and the F, A, C, E, notated reading, the treble clef chart, which is something I have in my classroom. But also notating reading is good. I have that on the screen as well. K through 1st is not doing treble clef, but they're doing high, low, going up, going down, steps, skips, leaps, and repeats. These are, like, once again, like I said, if time permits. So if you look again at this whole structure, so it is steady beat, listening, known singing song, solfege card or rhythms, whichever, dance song, new singing song, that's 6, and an instrument piece, that's 7. So there's 7 activities. And they are each definitively their own songs that are being used for each thing. In other words, I'm not taking the known singing song and playing that on the instrument piece. I'm not taking the new singing song and playing it as an instrument piece. This is song A. Well, really, this is song A. So the steady beat song and the listening song are the same. So that's one song right there. And by song, I mean musical piece. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so steady beat and listening piece, that's the same song. Then you have a known singing song. Solfege is not really a song, it's just there. Then you have a dance song. Then you have a new singing song, and then an instrument piece. Those 5 different songs, right, that they're doing in the same lesson, something with them in the same lesson. But you can reuse these songs on week 2 or week 3. You can spread these songs out and they can come back. It's not like it has to be a one and done. We sang Mary Had a Little Lamb, we're never gonna see it again. It certainly does not have to be that way. So, final thoughts here. This is what has worked best for me, is having this definitive lesson structure with 7 different activities and the possibility of theory, or if I also have extra time, maybe a storybook or something at the end of class. I feel that it keeps my lessons going very smoothly because we're transitioning from one lesson to one activity to another. My students I feel don't get quite as bored, because if they didn't like the first song out of the 5 songs we do, maybe they'll like the second song, and so on. We're not stuck in one place for half of the lesson. All of that being said, this is my opinion. This is how I like to run my class. Once again, there are plenty of music teachers out there that will take the same song and work with it for 20 minutes doing multiple things with it. If that is what you want to do and it's successful for your students, and your students are moving, listening, playing, and singing, and your students are getting a good music education and getting some theory in there and getting some, seeing the notation and all the other things, and you feel like they're getting some music literacy, great. Continue to go for it. Okay? Because I think that one of the things I love about my job is that because we are the only ones in the building, and even supervisors and everybody else that might be in our districts over our subject, we do get a lot of leeway to run our classrooms with whatever methodologies we want to, because we need to make it work for us, because if it doesn't work for us, it's not going to work for our students. I hope that this helped you to see how to structure a lesson. I also hope that you remember to just be yourself, do what works best for you. Have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe.